Find the sample space for each event. A. Flipping an ordinary quarter. Sample space just means the list of all possible outcomes. So sometimes it's easy and other times it's not. Either which way, a tree diagram will help us out. So let's do a tree diagram to begin with for A. So we begin by writing start. And we put a different branch for every one of the different outcomes. When we flip a quarter, there's only two outcomes, heads and tails, and so there's only two branches. And at the end, we put H and T. Our sample space, it's written with these little squigglies. You might have seen them in algebra before, and it just means the set. The set with one possibility H, the other T. That's our sample space, list of all possible outcomes. So what would it be when we're flipping an ordinary quarter twice? Well, we can use and continue from our first tree. Suppose we had a heads the first flip. Then there are two possibilities for our second. We could get another heads, or we could get a tails. Same thing if we would have got a tails the first time round. There are two more possibilities there. A head or a tail the second time around. So here's how the tree helps us to list all the outcomes. I'm going to start with my squigglies again, meaning the set. And my first outcome, when flipping twice, should have two parts, right? We flipped the coin twice. And that is HH. In other words, I could have got a heads followed by a heads. That's one outcome when flipping a coin twice. Another outcome is it could have been heads followed by tails. There's a second outcome. A third is tails first followed by heads. And again, that's different than having a head first as opposed to having a tail first. That's the third outcome. And finally, our fourth outcome is tails followed by tails. And so the sample space of flipping a quarter twice consists of 4 pieces. And it's exactly these 4 pieces. So, how would this go for flipping an ordinary quarter 3 times? All right, well now my diagram gets yet more interesting. For every one of my 1, 2, 3, 4 outcomes, I'm flipping a coin again, so there's 2 more outcomes for each of those. Each of those has 2 more outcomes, and each of those 2 outcomes are heads, tails. Do you know how many outcomes that's going to be? It's actually going to be 8. Let's list them all. So I'll write my answer over here. My first is HHH, or triple H. My next, and I'd like to check them off as I go along, is H followed by T. Next is HTH. Followed by HTT. Next, it looks like I'm over here on this branch now, it's THH. And you can see the value of the tree diagram. I mean, this would be so confusing to try to just write these all out with just by kind of thinking about it and guessing randomly. So the tree diagram really is nice in allowing you to get a structured way of not missing a single one. So it looks like next we're at T, H, and T. Followed by TTH. And last but not least, our 8th outcome, 4, 5, 6, 7, is TTT, all tails. And that is our sample space for flipping an ordinary quarter 3 times.